In the mystical realm of steampunk, an experiment of unearthly proportions was underway. To craft a cephalopod with a mind beyond measure. Yet, fate had other plans, and the bruise of creation devised a monster of chaos. Wreaking havoc on the laboratory, in the wake of this destruction, a humble maid stumbled upon the wreckage, only to witness the beast's wrath as it thundered through the ceiling. Allow me to unveil the tale of its genesis. By now, you're probably wondering, what on earth is she doing? Well, I'm working on making a spiral staircase to go on my miniature. Here's a box I found. It closes up beautifully, and I had an idea of putting a steampunk miniature in it, featuring this little staircase as well as a few other things. So with a skewer and some popsicle sticks that are all cut and drilled and coloured, I've popped it onto a skewer and have organised it to be a little spiral staircase. I've got one for the top and one for the bottom. I'm using some super glue to secure it all into place, and I'll have a platform as well, which I have to line up just right so you can actually get onto it and look over your awesome laboratory with all its experiments and machinery. I struggle a little bit with steampunk. I love it so much, but seems such a complicated idea and such an interesting aesthetic that I will continue to try and do some steampunk because it's very cool. It's just, I find it difficult. With some acrylic ink, I'm going over and dry brushing the background that I've made out of cartoon clay, or as other people call it, foam clay. And that will bring out all the beautiful textures and details that I've popped in with my bits of broken brick and stone and what have you on the walls. And the black in the background helps keep the details of the deeper etchings. I'm using a scalpel to pop holes in it, and I'll glue my stairs into place. And here I have to cut off a little bit of skewer and sandpaper it so it's nice and flush. And then of course I'll have to recolour it a little bit again. These ink pads that I use all the time are marvellous. They are so handy and so easy and quick. And I highly suggest having it in your little kit. I've used some old TV remote that's broken and bits of TV or whatever I've found, could be clocks, who knows, and use that as part of the machinery. I'm colouring up some bendy straws for some pipes. And this is electrical wiring that I'm also putting into place. Just everything that's all industrial I'm trying to use. The tacky glue and the super glue seem to be my best friends in this project. I'm putting some glue and alcohol ink in these little vials. I think if I did it again though, I would probably try just glue and the ink and forget the alcohol because it evaporated on me in the oven. These are little bolts that had been cut off and I snaveled. And of course this is in a deep dark cave, so we need some moss growing here and there amongst the cave walls and the machinery. Can you have too many cogs when you're doing steampunk? I'm not sure. I don't think so. I'm turning this little window into a fancy Victorian mirror. And here we are so far. I actually put this project up for quite a while before returning to it, because again it was difficult to wrap my little mind around. This is polymer clay, and I've decided to work on an octopus. I shall call him Gerald. These silicone tools and shapers are marvellous to work with. I need to make 8 very even legs, so this technique I find is very good to try and keep equal portions. When you see how big Gerald ends up, I would love for you to put down in the comments how big you actually think he is. I'm incredibly interested because I have a terrible judgment of sizes. Also, if Gerald isn't suited to my little monster, or my big monster, what would you call him? I've rolled out a really small worm of clay and chopped it off into little pieces, and I'm making little balls. With a stylus I'll put them on, and these will be my suckers. Well, not my suckers, they'll be Gerald's suckers. Because Gerald's the octopus. I find this bit very satisfying. I accidentally flattened one side, so I'm just reshaping it and putting a little bit more clay. I've built up the center of the top of Gerald, and after I place him in his little spot and move the arms where I want them, I will blend and manipulate the clay so it all looks like one lovely giant mutant octopus. I really feel like I'm picking up a real octopus when I do that. Let's push Gerald into place and start manipulating his arms. My silicone stylus or shaper. Is very handy here. If you're finding value in this video, please consider giving me a like. And if you want to see more of this type of thing, subscribe. I do lots of alcohol ink art and some acrylic, and I do love my miniatures. But quite frankly, if there's something creative I want to get my hands on, I'll be doing it, and I'll put it on this channel. I appreciate all the support, peeps. I need to chop off a couple of his arms and thread it through the bottom because he's breaking through the ceiling and coming down beneath. I feel like gnarly skeleton teeth would be cool, so I'll pop those in there and I'll attach him to his body. I want Gerald to look a little bit crazy. I'm going to give him one big eyeball and one little one. And they're not facing in the same direction, so he looks a bit... yeah, he's having a bit of a meltdown. I want to give him lots of little veins on his head. I realise it looks a bit sus, but it'll be great when it's painted. Now from the oven. Gerald is done. I've got out my trusty acrylic inks again, and we're going to colour him up. It's already watered down, which is wonderful. And the inks or the colours will fall into all the creases and crevices and nooks and crannies. And that will help give us our detail. It'll bring up the detail. It dried very shiny too, which I was pretty stoked about. I think if I did a project similar to this again, I would try and do it so he glowed in the dark. But I am very pleased with how it came out. This is an acrylic pen that I'm doing the details on him with. And just working quickly on his teeth. The paint off from the pen is still quite wet, so I'm brushing it up and blending it in. It is such an easy, lazy way. It's fabulous. I thought a few more details on his little head would be cool. And I'm going to do a bit of brushing here and there with some more brass paint just to make it more steampunky. And I think you can call him Gerald, and done. Now I'm not sure which fairy this is from Sleeping Beauty. I think it's Merryweather, but Merryweather's getting a bit of a makeover. I've chopped off the top of her hat, and I'm going to shorten her little wand and stick the top of the hat to the wand. This will be part of her light that she'll be using to look at Gerald coming through the ceiling. Of course, bright pink is not really the look that we're going for here, so we'll give her a bit of makeover with some acrylic pens and some Sharpies and make her a little bit more steampunk appropriate. I need to wire up a light. This unit will be great because I'll make it look like another piece of machinery. I don't have a wire stripper, so I'm using a blade to take off a little bit of the plastic around the wiring for my globe and awkwardly twisting it together before covering it with some shrink tubing. I highly recommend double, triple, quadruple checking that you've got the right wire to the right wire. There's nothing more frustrating than doing this and then it's wrong. It is very satisfying shrinking that tubing though. I realise I went a bit too hard there. But it's done and it works. I'm using a little bit of double-sided tape to attach my unit to the piece. And this I will decorate to turn into a great big machine as well. I enjoy making the units a part of what you're making, or hiding it. The wires, I'm pretending that they're great big cables, so I need to glue them into place and make them look heavy. The naked bulb and the wires look fabulous, I think, with the steampunk theme. These wooden cogs I'm colouring in acrylic paint and covering it with some gold acrylic, and that will make it look very metallic for me. This is my window come mirror that I was working on earlier. That I'm giving it a gold and a black brush. Now it's in place and ready to go. And that will reflect on my bulb, which will make it look extra cool. Pretty happy with how the whole project came out. So drum roll please, thank you animal, and we'll get on to the glamour shots. If you found value, please consider liking. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.